This is the Triple Play Fantasy Basketball Show, proud member of Empire Media. I'm your host, casting live from Baltimore, Maryland, Coach Jay Lewis, with my two teams in a fight for the championship. Yeah, my two teams actually made it to the fantasy championship. It's never over till it's over, and it's looking like both of my matchups are going to come down to that Sunday night game. But this is why we love fantasy. I'm joined by some prestigious, decorated gentlemen, including, first up, my teammate of Coach's Corner on our Triple Play YouTube channel. We just dropped our picks for All-NBA. Representing Fresno, California, a guy who doesn't hire a contractor for $1,000 to fix his fence because he's a man. Welcome, Coach Kevin Coleman.
What's up, guys? How are you doing? I'm just here hanging out. I'm lovely Saturday. It's like 80 degrees already. I'm too hot here in California.
And getting ready to put a mass production up for Mother's Day tomorrow. I know how that is.
Yeah, I forgot about that. It's gonna be a rough day today.
Little scramble. Maybe you just had to scramble some eggs in the morning. Who knows? We all have different situations and different expectations from that other person. Also streaming from Baltimore, Maryland, the guy who gets all the deals done and contracts signed. Simply, he is the closer, Eric Devendorf Mendelson.
I like that. I'm going to start introducing myself as the closer at work. That's better than Kevin calling me a Debbie Downer in our group chat.
Did you earn the Debbie Downerness, though?
He did.
Nah, I'm the real one. I'm the real one.
All right. And, well, I guess it's not last. Last, certainly not least, live from an undisclosed location, a man who spends some time to reflect on things of life by embracing and appreciating nature. That's none other than Brad Kilgore. What up, Brad?
Can't complain, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm getting excited for playoffs. Now it's 10 days away, like 5 games each. These standings are like going crazy. I'm just waiting for the matchups. Playing games going to be off the chain. All right. And lastly, a guy who couldn't make it on our last scheduled appearance as he had bigger fish to fry doing an NBA YoungBoy music video, a childhood friend, Morehouse graduate, rapper, producer. You can hear him talk life and sports on Sports Freaks Pod, founder of MetroKnowMeMusic. That is MixedByTweeze, or as I know him as TJ.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, fellas?
What it do? And what's your location?
I am in Silver Spring, Maryland.
For those who don't know, that's the city right outside the District of Columbia. People from Silver Spring, although we're from Maryland, we root for the Washington teams.
For sure. Well,
all right.
I love the Lakers too. Sorry.
There we go. Lake Show. And we'll talk a lot about that today. But first, a little background. Take me back to 2005 real quick. What was it like being on that state championship runner-up team, playing alongside 5 future D1 athletes, including Jermaine Dixon, former Wizards guard, Juan Dixon's brother, and University of Pittsburgh starter?
It was a great experience. Didn't play much, but we experienced a good wave. We're a very, very good team, and I think if I look back at that time, it's around the time of like late registration. Fallout Boy, Sugar, we're going down swinging.
T.I.
We belong together. T.I. It was like a really like an eclectic time for music. I relate a lot of things to music because they're kind of like synonymous in my life, the music and the sports. So yeah, I'd say it was a time for teams. It was a time for groups, and I think that it impacted how we played and how we received. How we moved, kind of like the Pistons, kind of like that time. We had a lot of good players, and versus trying to be focused on one person running the offense of the show. We kind of just
that's right. And Lil Wayne really owned the rap game at that time. I play back those mixtapes. I know every single word, every disgusting word. Yeah, that's right. All right. In today's extravaganza, we speak on subjects such as LAYBRON is back, baby. Or no, is he? Is he? Or is he? Yeah, I don't know. We thought we had hope. LaMelo actually back. I refuse to call him just Melo. That is blasphemous. The dangerous play in tournament teams. It's tank time. and we have complaints. We're also going to talk, as always, our performance of the week, the fantasy championship just wrapping up, takeaways from the very different shortened season. Also, who you got on fantasy most improved player of the year, and finally our question of the week, which is the biggest what if in basketball, which I think will be an interesting topic. But first, a little news and notes. With only a handful of games remaining before May 18th play-in tournament games and final seedings, we have NBA superstar watch. There those guys are. LeBron James, after missing the most time due to an injury in his career, his ankle continues to give him issues. And Anthony Davis, after pulling together a good week, gets pulled for back spasms, then drops 36 and 12 in a crucial loss to Portland, which now makes them in a play-in contention. Do we need to hit the panic mode on a Lake show? And damn, it feels good to be young. LaMelo Ball coming back from a wrist fracture, what happened, it seemed like a month ago. Throwing highlight reel dimes nightly as Charlotte back into winning ways. What are you focusing on in the final stretch of the season? I'm going to start with our guest, TJ.
All right, like I said before, I'm a Lakers fan. I guess I'm focused on how we're going to figure this out here, but not panicked. We're good. We're good. All right. I think actually what's funny is the people who should be most stressed about what's going on are the Phoenix Suns. Because in reality, worst case scenario, we end up in the play-in games, right? All right. We lose, right? And we win. We end up in the 8th seed. We end up playing the Suns. They have that great season, and then they got to play us at full strength in the playoffs. And everything's all bad for them.
Wait, full strength. LeBron will never be 100% again.
You'll think he'll never be 100%.
Those are his words.
He said that.
He's gassing everyone up. We all know that.
That's his job. He's like Floyd. He's selling the show.
He's holding the Joker card.
I don't know.
I think he wants that playing game. I think he wants that 1 versus 2. I think that by all means he's trying to avoid the Clippers as long as possible.
He would not have said what he said about the playing game, and somebody should be fired. Whoever created it should be fired if he wanted it. If he wanted the Lakers to be in the playing game, man, there's no way. I think the Lakers should be a little panicked, not because LeBron is hurt, but because I don't think they have a line. They don't know what to do with their team yet. Like they don't know what kind of lineups work and what kind of lineups don't. I think they were really excited when they got Andre Drummond. Anthony Davis was really excited because he doesn't have to play the 5
looked really
anymore.
bad yesterday, by the way. Andre
He
Drummond.
did. That's the thing. So they don't have spacing anymore. Like I think it almost makes more sense for Andre Drummond to be on the second unit and just dominate that second unit, and Marc Gasol play center alongside Anthony Davis, because I think that changes the way that they play a lot. But that's not what they're doing right now, and they look bad, man. They don't look like they barely look like a playoff team, to be honest.
That's the problem. You wish that LeBron was back, and so you can kind of see and work out those lineups, because neither one of those centers you just mentioned is going to be on the court to end games anyways. But you would like to get productive minutes, first, second, and third quarter. But they'll get played off the court, and the Lakers' best lineup, and we saw that in the playoffs last year, was with Anthony Davis at the center position.
I think it depends. I think it depends who they're playing, right? Like if they're playing the Suns, one of those centers is going to be on the floor because they got to have somebody to guard Ayton, because AD is not going to want to play the 5.
But he can guard some Ayton though.
So what we just
but he's not going to.
We just need 20 minutes out of one of those guys, and I think we'll get those 20 minutes based on
you guys haven't even mentioned that Schroeder's out 10 to 14 days with COVID protocol, who has been the primary ball handler while LeBron is out. One of the sparks off the bench. I mean, I think you got to panic if you're them, because you haven't played with a lineup like Brad said, but now everybody's trying to get healthy, and the play-in games, like, yeah, you're gonna have an easier matchup. But then you go to straight best of 7 playing every other night. So to not only come back from injury, but to have that conditioning after missing 20-plus games if you're LeBron, if you're Anthony Davis, missing a couple months with your own injury, and especially the long run they had last year. And I think the target is still on the Lakers because they're the defending champion. I think anytime that a team has won it all, there's a little extra motivation for their opponent to play better against them.
Also, worth noting, no team that's been 7 seed or lower has ever won the championship.
Delabrat.
It's not looking good.
Worth noting, the last
Music to
10
my
times
ears.
LeBron James was in the playoffs, he took his team to the finals. But let's get Kevin in there.
No, I just want you guys said a lot of it. I would say that they have had 43 different starting lineups already. So they're all over the place. They don't have very good chemistry and cohesiveness.
Not to mention those top guys haven't played together when you're talking about Schroeder, Drummond, AD, and LeBron. But yeah,
they just look different. They're a little off. I think they can figure it out because they got LeBron and AD. But if they can't, then that's the struggle. I don't think they want to get in that playing game at all. Like I don't think that's going to be those old dudes don't want that. And then LeBron's gonna make excuses. You know how it goes. But
he's going to come out with the cast again that his wrist never healed from a couple of years ago.
Paul Pierce in his wheelchair.
I will say it's one game, and it's so super box office right now. If the Lakers are playing the Warriors, which what it is right now, and it's one game, people. Let's not act like this is going to tax them to death. It might even just prep them up for that first series. Also, he's Game 7 James, and in an elimination game, he plays his best basketball. So I wouldn't be too worried about those guys. And look, you draw anybody in that first round, it's going to be a difficult matchup. Like these guys, this is the Wild Wild West. And sometimes you just got to buckle up. I remember when the Mavericks won their championship. They beat the Lakers. They beat the Spurs. They beat some other super dominant team that had 50 wins. They beat all 50-win teams to the championship. Sometimes being battle-tested early is not a bad thing. But we didn't even talk about, man, the most charismatic young player in our NBA. LaMelo was mentioned there. He's throwing underhand dimes full court. He's throwing back shoulder. He's throwing baseball sliders. He just plays a beautiful, infectious game, and it affects winning. So, Kevin, I want to hear your thoughts on LaMelo coming back. And hey, we're back. They're back in playoff hunt. They're in that play-in tournament.
Yeah, I love LaMelo. You guys know that. He's better than Donovan Mitchell. But I would, when you're looking at what he's done, okay, when you
look at with the Donovan slander.
I had to give that to Doc. I would just say, he had 27, 6 and 6 his last game against Orlando. He's just an absolute fantastic point guard player all around. So it's exciting. I hope they get in the playoffs, like you said, just because I want to see him in that Eastern Conference just to be there. But it looks like they made the right choice. And I think LaMelo should be Rookie of the Year. So I'm excited. I love him having back, and those are the guys that I want. And I love watching him play. And they got a nice little nucleus out there.
Brad, hop in there.
Kevin said it, man. That LaMelo should be Rookie of the Year. Like, I don't care about the time he's missed. I don't care that, Ant has been playing out of his mind. If you just look over the course of the year, you look what each player provides to their team, LaMelo's the reason that they're in the playoff hunt. Like, he's just played like a 10-year vet, man. He's incredibly poised. He's an actual floor general. He can shoot when he's hot. Like, he's got it all. Like, Ant's he's been incredible, and he's really played up to like that number one pick status. Like, I didn't think he'd be this good. He really shocked me. I'm
talking about him later too, because he is making me eat all of my words. Speaking of people eating their words, Doc, what's your take on LaMelo?
I mean, he's doing better than I thought. I'll admit that. To say he's the only reason that they're in the playoffs. Did we forget that Gordon Hayward had a resurgent year?
Gordon Hayward hasn't played in like 2 years. Like, he's been out all year practically.
And LaMelo was out 20+ games with a wrist injury. I'm sorry that 66% of each teams in the conference make it. They're in the play-in. It's not that impressive, especially when you have the Cavs and the Pistons and the Magic. So that's basically you have to beat out 2 teams. Let's not forget that P.J. Washington's having a good year.
Time out. So
Max Player Graham.
No. You're using the argument that 66% of the teams. 66% of the teams in the league make it, and the guy you want to win Rookie of the Year is not in one of those 66% of the teams.
I mean, Anthony Edwards has played more games. That consistency is something. The Timberwolves suck as an organization in general. The West is tougher. So wait, Brett, has
Charlotte has been historically.
Has Devontae max contract Graham helped the Hornets get to where they were?
No, because LaMelo's
so he's not a max player then.
Yes, I think we've established that was an off take. Yes,
I just want Brad to
irrelevant.
That's true. We got to get it on.
Completely irrelevant.
Go ahead,
I just want Brad to admit
Just get it over with.
I won't do that.
All right,
won't
yeah.
do
So,
that.
so you're still paying the guy that's as tall as
But
me.
in all honesty, LaMelo has been better than I thought. I'm excited to see him in year 2 when he's fully healthy.
Tej, you had something to say. Get in there.
All right. I think LaMelo's been amazing. He's actually surpassed a little bit of what I expect him to be. I think it's and on the other hand, there's a little bit of things that are being overblown. Like, for example, I love that he's played a great game, but I think that he does excel in situations that it's kind of made for him to excel. As far as I actually am a big AE fan. I like to see not only that he started out by figuring this thing out and had to get through it. He's played through all these games. Minnesota is terrible, but Minnesota is not terrible just based on his season and his play, but they've also had injuries to D'Angelo Russell. I'm a big sports bettor, so I've realized the impact of D'Angelo Russell's return. They're actually amazing at covering spreads. And I know that seems maybe kind of insignificant, but the idea is that when you're covering spreads against a sport book, that means that you are supposed to lose. They expect you to lose, and they're able to cover these spreads because he is phenomenal. He just came off just this week against Memphis, even though they lost. He had 42 points, right? He's 8 for 9 for 3, right? And we're 17 for 22 from the field, right? And this, even though they lost that game, this is amongst them winning 4 of the last 7. So they have shown that when they have something close to their full team, they have the ability to win. And I think that we would have seen a more impressive season if D'Angelo played the entire year.
And it was his best game of his career by far. 8 for 9 from 3-point line. Anthony Edwards, to me, because of that efficiency, shooting 17 of 22, he's been taking a giant leap forward, even with Russell being in the mix. Rubio's getting more minutes with Beasley out, since Beasley shot the ball every single time he touched it. With the coaching move too, you can see that there may be a chance for light at the end of the tunnel, especially if you get one of those top 3 picks, because if it doesn't go top 3, that pick goes to the Warriors. So they're hoping to kind of stay in that position where but hey, we'll talk about it too. There's 5 teams that all have 20 or 21 wins. They're fighting for that second worst record, and it seems like Minnesota's playing the best ball of that.
Are you going to get back to AE? Because I got one more thing to say about AE, if possible.
No, let's get it over with now. He was my performance of the week, but.
Oh, excellent. All right. I'd also like to say about the Rookie of the Year contest, right? If you really look at it, I'm more impressed with AE's splits being eerily close to D Wade's rookie splits. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. He's currently at 19.
And then D Wade also co-signed him, said he's going to be better than me. That happened before he even played his first NBA game.
I'm sure he'd say the same thing about Lonzo too, though.
He's a nice guy. He is a nice guy.
he's a nice guy. But we look at AE's got he plays about 31 minutes a game, 19 points, 3 assists, 5 rebounds, and 1.6 stocks, steals and blocks together. Right, and D Wade, his rookie year,
that stocks,
16 points.
Let me ask you guys around the horn. Who is your rookie of the year? In like 5-10 seconds, you can say the name, say your reason, or just say the name. I'm gonna start with Kevin. Who's your rookie of the year? Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball?
LaMelo Ball.
Oh, you're only gonna say Tyrese Halliburton?
Nah, screw you, dude. Screw you. Nah, LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo Ball. That's fair. Doc.
Anthony Edwards.
Of course you would. Brad.
Melo.
And Tweeze.
Anthony Edwards.
All right, and I'm gonna say LaMelo Ball. So we're gonna be. I guess
I have $30 that says Anthony Edwards, so it better be him.
Ooh, that $30. Sometimes those little bets mean the most. All right, we're gonna transition. The season is wrapping up in 2 weeks, and the NBA playoffs is right around the corner. We already mentioned this, but they're letting 66.6% of the league in the final dance, and we're going to talk about favorites from the play-in tournament, potential matchups, and who we are taking to advance to the 7th and 8th seed. Who's the most likely team to advance in the first round? So as of today, and it just changed because the Lakers lost to Portland last night, putting them in the 7th seed, and Miami won yesterday, putting themselves in the 6th seed with a 1-game lead over Boston. So right now we have Boston 7, Charlotte 8. Pacers 9, Wiz 10. Those are matchups. And then we have Lakers, Warriors 7-8, and Grizzlies, Spurs 9-10. So let's go ahead and start with Kev on this one. Who's the most dangerous team? Who do you see it kind of advancing and how that plays out in 10 days from now?
I think Miami, right? I think with what they have going on there, with where they're at.
Great listening to the question, Kev.
What, he said advance, right, to the first round?
Yeah, Miami is now the 6th seed.
They're technically 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
One game lead. It's one game.
They'll definitely make it out of
Miami,
the play.
if they make it in, is a great play. So kiss my ass. Other than that, guys, definitely not Washington because that team's trash. So I wouldn't really worry about that. As far as the West Coast, I don't really think any of these teams have really. I don't know. When I was looking at this,
Kev, the Lakers are in the play-in.
Yeah, but if the Lakers can't get their shit together, like we just talked about, Coach, I don't really see them advancing to the next couple of rounds. So if they're in there, they're in there. But again, they're not playing very well. So to me, it's top-heavy league. If you're not in the top 3 teams, you're not going to the finals.
And what's funny about that the side note on Miami getting to the 6th seed, it wouldn't actually be a rematch with Milwaukee right now because Milwaukee currently is in the 2 seed because they beat Brooklyn 2 times this weekend. They have the same record, but they're sitting in the 2 seed of the East. Doc, who you got? Who's the most dangerous? Who you got advancing in the first round? If you got anybody, Kevin also mentioned that the Wizards suck, so I can't wait till Brad gets a hold of that.
So I think in the West, you got to go with the Lakers. I think with the Warriors, you can shut down Steph. Kelly Oubre's not 100% right now. I don't really like Memphis and San Antonio in a short series. In the East, I'm actually going with the Wizards. The way the momentum has gone right now, I'd say if the Celtics were healthy, I would pick them. But Kemba Walker doesn't seem like he can play back-to-back nights. Jaylen Brown has an ankle sprain. And I think if Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum is out, the Celtics are not the team that you think that they are. So you got to go with the team that's probably the second hottest in the East. And
you want to see that matchup with Brooklyn because they did beat Brooklyn twice this year in two of the best games that I've seen all season for the Wizards. So
they did, and like as a Wizards fan, like when they won 8 in a row, that's the longest winning stretch they've had since 2001. And I'm just thinking like that was my first year following the team. And it's been 20 years that they've gotten this much probably national attention. So, they're catching it at the right time.
And after the 15-game sample, the games that they lost were really close to. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Brad.
they might lose the most heartbreaking games ever.
And win the close ones too. Yeah, that's right. They are the Wizards still. Go ahead, Brad.
Does anybody remember, a few months ago when I might have mentioned that the Wizards were going to make the playoffs? Does anybody remember that?
I mentioned, there's also something else.
Congrats, Brad.
I can't forget, but
congrats.
I believe I was laughed out of the room. But man, I agree with Doc, man. I think the Lakers are the easy call in the West. They have the best team and the best players. You can't really focus too much on momentum because at the end of the day, when the playoffs comes around, it's not about momentum. It's about who has the best players, and the Lakers do. So I think they should be able to get out of there. And then on the East, the Wizards are arguably the hottest team in basketball, and it's not just a momentum thing. It's a cohesive thing. Like they're actually playing together. They've learned what kind of lineups work. They're playing better defense. Russ is, he's finally healthy, and he's playing like, I picked him to be my MVP this year before the season started. If the Wizards made, top 4 seed, and obviously they didn't, but if they had, like he's playing as good ball as he's ever played. He's about to break Oscar Robinson's triple-double record. Like, this guy gets nothing.
Yeah, that's happening tonight, by the way. He's going to break it. He
gets nothing but disrespect. And the reason I know what people are saying about Brad Beal and how he's like, the best player in this organization. But at the end of the day, the reason that they're in the playoffs right now is because of Russ. And that's just the fact of the matter. He does everything for them. And Brad just scores, and it's important to have a score. It's important to have somebody you can count on when it's the fourth quarter and you need a bucket. He's that guy. But in terms of getting us to the fourth quarter and getting us close, it's Russ. He just does everything. So I don't think any team in the East wants to play them, to be honest.
Yeah, technically for the year, the Wizards are actually better with Russell Westbrook off the court. But that just shows how bad it was to start. He was recovering from that quadricep injury. He wasn't playing back-to-backs. There wasn't the chemistry. They were losing close games.
Torn quad. That's absurd.
Yeah, and to his credit, he has the highest field goal percentage in clutch shooting in the last 5 minutes of the game. And I know he gets crushed for his clutch play, but he's been amazing. And
he's been efficient. Can you believe that?
They're scary. For me, it's the team with LeBron James. I'm not scared of Utah, especially with Donovan Mitchell having to recover from it. He still hasn't been back, so he's going to be a little shaky. And I don't care if you got to go with Alex Caruso and Kyle Kuzma and Markieff Morris. If you got LeBron James on the court, I'm going with those guys. I got them advancing past 1 and 2. And yes, we haven't had a 7 seed or less get there, but this is a different circumstance. This is 71 game seasons, and both of their top players been hurt.
Coach, I have a question for you. I want to go back to what Kevin said earlier. If you were playing a healthy Utah with a healthy Donovan Mitchell, or a healthy Utah with a healthy LaMelo Ball, what team would you be scared of more? The team with LaMelo Ball or the team with Donovan Mitchell?
Donovan Mitchell. He's a cold blood killer. He had 57 in a playoff game last year. He averaged 40 in that series. Huh?
So you keep bringing that
up.
It's
a factual thing. It's like,
are you scared of like Tyler? Are you scared of Tyler Hero like that?
Yeah, but
he had a great
he had one game where he had 37. But Donovan Mitchell had 2 games over 50 and averaged over 40 for the series. It's a little bit different than him. Tyler Hero getting lucky 1 game. And, they're just not on the same stratosphere. But, I'll take Donovan Mitchell, especially with the fit with Conley and just his maturity in his game and his ability to create shots at the end of the game when it really matters. He's had a couple game winners this year. So that's why I like Donovan. Greater than LaMelo today. We'll see. We'll see down the road the potential of young LaMelo. I can't argue against that. And if we had to go back, I don't know if I changed my list, man. This kid is just coming off an injury like that, and then he blocking with that broken wrist. I mean, and then throwing these dimes. It's unbelievable, man. The kid is just such a hooper, and he's just going to get better and better. All right, well, let's move on from some playoff teams to some not trying to win games, or like the JV conference of the NBA. This is the race for Cade Cunningham. It looks like Houston has all but assured themselves the worst record, although Kevin Porter Jr. did drop 50 points and 11 dimes a couple weeks ago in a W. The NBA has Orlando, Detroit, Minnesota, Cleveland, OKC, all in the mix for that second worst record. Like I said earlier, they all have 20 or 21 wins. So it's literally going to come down to the stretch. And I'm curious to see if any of those teams play each other. But we are witnessing some god-awful military tank lineups. Who are some guys that have gotten some opportunity that has turned your head? Or what are some tactics in the tank game that you have seen some of these teams that frustrate your soul as an NBA fan? TJ.
I'd say Kelly Olynyk is often the best player on the court.
And don't you say it.
I'm leaving you alone.
Okay, leave it alone then.
I'm leaving you alone. We won't talk about whatever reason we're talking about Kelly Olynyk and
Jared Jackson Jr. over there.
Okay, Kelly. All right.
All right.
He's good for 18 points and 9 rebounds at any moment during this tanking process. Him and Christian Wood, I think, are tank champions. They excel in this type of season. Who else? Another tactic that I'm seeing is the 2 useless players lineup. Have you guys seen that? Because they're lineups that the Magic have put together that involve 2 useless players or 2 duplicate players. So it appears as if they're attempting to compete.
Like who?
RJ Hampton and Cole Anthony, I know, are 2 of them. And then they're playing with Harris a lot of minutes.
That's weird. You got to grow your young guys. That's not useless players. You got to give them minutes. It's
sneaky. It's sneaky because in reality, you can still put together better lineups and give those guys opportunities to play. It's kind of like how when the Bulls, before the Miricic trade, they would play lineups with Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen at the same time. So what that does is it just limits Lauri Markkanen's chance to be anything or be of any real like contribution to the team, so they could be better. It's just putting those guys on the court. You appear like you're competing, but Lauri can excel.
I don't know about that because the way I look at it as like if I was a GM, if I invested heavily in this talent, you got to get them on the court, and if you want to get them on the court and you're investing in them, you want them to be your best players eventually. So yeah, I think it makes sense to put your best players on the court, whether they have duplicate talent or not. Like I think, you look at what the Lakers are doing with Andre Drummond and Anthony Davis. They're kind of duplicates, so it's not really working. But at the same time, Andre Drummond's way better than Marc Gasol, so that's what they're doing. But it makes more sense to have Marc Gasol in there, So
you got to stagger playing time. When you're seeing, we'll see in the playoffs is they're gonna play Marc because it's gonna be about winning.
They have to. That's right. They have to.
And these teams that we're talking about and referencing, they're not doing that because it's not about winning. They're not adjusting and staggering like I was saying with the Bulls and Lauri Markkanen. It's not staggering their play. Is not allowing you to have Lauri Markkanen averaging 20 points and you having a chance for him to defeat or be the best player against the second lineup and gets the maximum out of him versus when you have him on the floor being a spaced out shooter. He's just stuck in the corner and you have Zach LaVine maximizing, but your team is not getting the most out of all the players you got.
And Doc, what's your standpoint on the tankage? Because we do have 5 teams that are all in this military tank game.
Minnesota.
It bothers me as an NBA fan. Like, imagine if you're a Thunder or you're a Rockets fan, and a couple years ago you're competing, and now they're literally throwing out trash lineups. And like for the Thunder, like 2 months ago, to say, yeah, we're gonna sit Al Horford. He's perfectly healthy. But we don't want to engage in the buyout market. But if we play him and he gets hurt, that hurts his trade value moving forward. It's like
Shay's 100% too. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is 100%.
Is he really?
Yeah,
I can almost guarantee it. It's been way too long since his
like
injury.
What for the fans that are coming to see a competitive team, like why are they going to pay to see them lose by 57 at home to Indiana? Like,
well, I don't think any fans are going to the games really.
I meant metaphorically. Why are you tuning in if your team isn't competitive? And that's the thing is like the Thunder traded for Al Horford. It's not like they were forced into him. They have a tactic of taking on expiring contracts or bad contracts and putting up draft picks. And if that's their thing to trade him in the offseason, like I get it, that's sticking with part of their plan. But it just kind of shows you more the business side of basketball, which sometimes, I don't think sits well with everyone. But at the end of the day, we'd realize like these teams are looking out what's best for their future. And they know if they can't contend this year, they're going to want to sit their star players to try to have a better chance to get a lower pick. And so that they don't damage any assets if they want to trade them in the offseason.
To Tweeze, sorry, Coach. To Tweeze's point, one of the reasons I don't like the job Sam Presti's done with getting all these picks is because eventually you're going to have to play these players that you're going to draft.
Exactly.
Like you don't have all those roster spots, and whoever you're picking is not going to be able to get the minutes, whether you stagger the minutes or not. I just don't really understand the point of getting all those picks because you're not going to be able to bundle them together.
You still have to hit on the picks too.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but when you have 40% of the draft picks in the next 3 years, like you're bound to get somebody out of there.
But if
they've been developing players as well. Look at Lou Dort, what he's doing this year.
But if you were a GM and somebody approached you to get like your lottery pick with like 10 other picks, you're not gonna take that. You're just not.
I will say this:
he's gonna have to draft with them.
Well, the Celtics tried that. You remember? They tried to get up and move. They tried to get Winslow from the Heat, and they said no. And they tried to move like 7 of their picks. It just didn't work.
Flashback to when the Hornets turned down 4 first-rounders for Frank Kaminsky.
Yeah.
Wolf. I will say this about OKC that it's frustrating to see these lineups and see Lou Dort drop 41 and then not play 2 days later for a hip thing and then come back out and drop 31. I don't really know about this hip thing. I will say that OKC is going in to get somebody in this top tier draft. This draft is one of the best drafts that I've seen. The players at the top that I've seen in years. And with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they were 13-14 or 13-15 in the games that he played. So if you want to tank, you gotta pull him all the way back because this is an all-star. This is a future possibly all NBA talent in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So you do have a piece that you can build around, and you have him on a contract that's going to last you, 3-4 years before you have to give him the super duper max. So you're trying to pair him up with somebody. I cannot understand their tankage to this level, but Brad, to your point, it's still a lottery system, and you still have to get the pick, and you still have to hit on the pick. I just feel like, and with Sam Presti drafting in the past, I just have a feeling that they're going to get somebody in the next 2 years that are going to put them in that playoff contention, and then maybe something to build on for the future, and then they could use those picks and trade them. I think Danny Ainge held on to a lot of these picks too, Kev, and then they got stuck in a corner, and they're in the back end of the first round, and then they got to just draft a point guard and a shooting guard and another point guard, another small forward. And then they don't develop. They lose out on these guys, and they're like all right players, but yeah. What are you going to do?
Best available drafted players usually land in bad situations.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about Detroit. Sucks. Although Sadiq Bey and Stewart are monsters. Orlando is nobody's really going downhill worse than them, but they'll get some injuries back. Cleveland is god awful. Their guards that I said were garbage are pretty good. They play so hard. It's hard for them to stay healthy. Garland's injury history is something to watch.
Cleveland has a good setup, man. They got a lot of.
They're going to be okay.
And they got Allen that they're going to pay. They're going to give the bank to him. So we'll see. I was high on Okoro, but I don't really see him as a future.
He just had 32.
He had his best career game, but if you look at his other percentages, I think based on the minutes that he plays, he has the lowest points per game. Yeah,
that's his role. Like Sexton, he's hogging
because
the ball
he accepts that role that he doesn't want usage. He's had opportunities. Like Garland's missed a lot, missed time. Sexton has missed time. He's been playing 35, 40 minutes. It's not like he doesn't get an opportunity. He doesn't have it.
But when Sexton is playing, he has the most usage on the court, and he's going to keep that. When Garland's playing, he takes that role. And then Allen gets the scraps. Like, there's just no room for Okoro to do anything. So,
but when they both play, they both get high usage rates, Garland and Sexton. And then when one of them doesn't play, someone needs to get in there. And it's City Osman because he wants to take over.
He's older. He knows more about the game than Okoro does. Like, I think it's too young to give up on a 19-year-old who just had.
I'm
32.
just worried. I wouldn't say I'm throwing the white flag in. But I would say that my expectations, in my opinion, on him going into the season where it is now has dropped off a lot. Okay. So that's where I stand on that. But yeah, man, Lou Dort, quote on Yahoo when he didn't play last game, it said, quote, tank commander, quote, right hip, tank violator, Cade Cunningham, unquote. I don't know who's writing this stuff, but it's like the Burger King Twitter account. It's pretty hilarious what some of these guys have been writing. So we'll move on. We'll talk a little bit of fantasy. I mean, it is fantasy championship weekend. Like there's like a couple games left. Who might be the player that was picked up and won someone a championship? Who came up clutch like 2012? Jeremy Lin Sanity did. We take a look at clutch pickups, starting with Kev.
Yeah, Coach, I don't know. I lost in the first round, and I could care less about fantasy basketball. And Doc, he lost really bad to, someone. So he might have a better opinion on this. I quit looking at my fantasy. I have Shea and Towns, all those dudes that just got hurt, Hayward, all those guys. So if you're in the playoffs, good for you. But I could care less. Brad hasn't looked at his shit since the first draft, so I don't know if he knows either. So, Doc,
it's funny that Kev knows this, and Kev's not even in our league.
Doc, who did you lose to? Why? What player went off against you?
I lost to Shannon because Luka Doncic had like 320 assist games. Jaylen Brown, LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, 45 in 5 games.
Shut up, Shannon.
Lost to
we need to get her back on the pod.
You lost to LaMelo? That just makes it worth it right here. You lost to LaMelo Ball.
It does. Yeah, we gotta get Shannon on. Me and Shannon are in the championship right now, and I don't know.
A shit talking pod.
I might have another 6-5 L on come someday, which is the worst one to lose by. So clutch pickups. Brad, are you waving the white flag on here, or did you have some? Did you do some
Brad didn't
research?
make a single transaction the entire season. You shouldn't be asking him.
Kev spoke for me, man. Like I haven't checked my roster since draft day. Nobody wants my advice, so I'm not even gonna force it.
Tweeze, you got somebody?
If you guys haven't picked up any of the tank champions, I don't know if they're out there. I don't know what's going on in the league with Kelly, Christian Wood, all those kind of guys. They're available.
Kelly's strong on both of my teams, and he is a walking triple-double.
Funny enough.
Yeah, funny enough that he's on both of my teams.
Get Wizard Killer Kem Birch. Kem Birch is the Wizard Killer.
Kem Birch is a beast. So last week, O'Shea Brissett won me my one league because he got like 4 blocks on Sunday, which won that category for me, put me into the championship.
He's an NBA player, man.
Oh,
he's gonna get a contract. He came out of nowhere.
Well, in that first game, I was so worried because he was playing. Sabonis had came back, and Sabonis had a triple double within the first half, but they were playing alongside each other. So good for him because he can hit the three. He blocks shots. He's efficient scorer. He's a tough kid, and I can't believe I didn't remember him from Syracuse, but was very, very good his freshman sophomore year. And I had to kind of do some research to backtrack. But this week, if you picked up Kevin Martin Jr., there's a good chance that you might be holding that gold at the end of the week. Last night, he had 26 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 7 3-pointers made. In the game before that, he had 23 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks. He's a block machine, but the assists have been the most impressive, and I think that has to do with Kevin Porter Jr. kind of having some of these injuries.
Can we just talk about blocks real quick, how inconsistent Nerlens Noel is? His last 5 games for blocks, 0, 5, 0, 6, 0. How do you go from not blocking a shot to blocking 5 or 6 in a game?
That reminds me of Jakob Poeltl, who I cut earlier this week. He had 16 minutes, and then last night he had 4 blocks, and now I'm tied with Shannon for blocks for the week. So I might be shedding some Jakob Poeltl tears.
We have too
Sunday.
much personal fantasy stories on this podcast.
I think so. I think because it got to the championship.
It's not personal. I just want to know why Nerlens Noel can't consistently get blocks.
Let's
not very good, Eric. There's that.
Let's go from our own personal travesties to fantasy season takeaways. What in this shortened schedule, COVID-riddled season affected normal day-to-day maneuvering and tactics? What did you learn about yourself and others in the sport of fantasy basketball? Brad, let's start with you.
I learned I'm a quitter.
I wrote that down. Nobody likes a quitter, right? I said I was reinforced that no matter if it's your boys in the fantasy, there's always quitters, and that's frustrating. At the minimum, update your bums. You have to set your players that are playing, your IR guys, send them to IR.
You're just mad. You're just mad that you traded James Harden for Anthony Davis this year.
Well,
says the guy that says we say too many personal fantasy stories.
Hey, he might save me at 36 and 12. He's actually coming on strong as of late, and he gives me a good game on Sunday. Who knows what's going to happen? It's not a done deal yet. It is 6-5. But that's hilarious. Doc, the guy that was sitting in first all year and let me have it, that I was in 7th.
I mean, you can't help it when you have 7 people get hurt in a week. I think the takeaway is that you need to check your lineups consistently before game time. There's a bunch of times, especially with ESPN that we use, that they have somebody with the out indicia and they put them in, or they say they're active. So really, go on Twitter, go on whatever sources you do and confirm whether that player's out or whether the platform hasn't updated.
What was that word, Doc?
Indicia.
Oh my God. Spell it.
INDICA.
Wow, I am impressed. I've never heard that word before.
Just spelled indica. You just spelled indica.
No. Doc is cultured.
My God.
It's a fancy word.
Indicia. Oh. Wow, I've never heard that before. I'm about to look it up right now.
That is
Indicia.
Great. Kev,
I learned that
fantasy.
I'm going to play best ball from now on. I don't know.
Good call.
To do the weekly. I don't have the time for fantasy basketball. I'm in one league.
This is what
That's
I realized.
about at my limit, and I made the playoffs, but there's weeks where like dudes are out, and then like in sleeper, it's weird because you have to pick a game, and I always pick the wrong game, and it was just trash. So I'm going best ball from now on.
All right, and one takeaway that I had is those bench positions, the IR spots, the number of transactions that you are allowed to in a certain week were all vital this year in people's success. And the people that were more hands-on and people that had more pickups excelled in fantasy more and more. And it was
it's pronounced indicia.
Indicia.
How about that? But you're right. It means
sign, right?
It's it means signs or to point out. Look at you, Doc.
There we go.
Learn something new. Learn something new on Fantasy Basketball Podcast.
There you go. I'm here to inform everyone.
Redefining the English language here on Triple Play Fantasy. Tease, you got any takeaways from fantasy season this year? That was 71 games and everyone on everyone's team outside of Jokic. If you had Jokic, you're probably in a championship game.
You're probably in the championship game. I'd say it was a hard year for sports betting to align with fantasy because there's a lot of rest and a lot of duplicate games. It gives you a lot of weird numbers playing the same team twice in a row.
Absolutely. And I have Jokic on one of my teams. But it's time for a little plug talk. Wherever you find your podcast, go follow Triple Play Fantasy Franchise. We got all things basketball, baseball, and football covered. If you're not keeping up, you might get passed like Oscar Robertson by Russell Westbrook with most triple doubles all time. Triple Play is giving you the heat like Glenn Rice in the early 1990s. If you're enjoying the content, how about dishing out an assist like full court underhand LaMelo by giving us a 5-star rating and review? Check us out on Twitter and IG at Trip Play Fantasy. Eric and Brad run our social media and provide daily questions. Our weekly episode drops as well as spot interviews. Got to check out former Redskins wide receiver in the U's great one, Santana Moss interview about his life and illustrious NFL career. Just want to say thanks from the entire Triple Play Fantasy family for your listens each and every week. Also, shout out Santana Moss. Oh, my God. What a great guy. And now it's time for a little NBA catch-up, starting with our impressive performance of the week. Who's been doing their Bobby Flay impression on the court? Brad, Lee Kilgore.
Yeah, man, you already know what I'm gonna say. It's Russ. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not gonna press the "I told you so" button, even though I could and I should, but I'll leave it alone.
And we'll leave it at that. Was it 17-17 last night? Now that's assists and rebounds too. That wasn't even his points. Kev, performance of the week.
Yeah, mine's Damian Lillard. He's he just does what he does, and people just kind of, he just does what he does, and people forget about how great he is. His last 5 games, you've seen he went 38, 7-4 against the Lakers. He had 32 against Cleveland, 33 against Atlanta, 26 against Boston, 32 against Brooklyn. So, he's just been balling, and he's got the Blazers back in the playoffs again, but they'll lose in the first round. But I got to give a shout out to my guy, Lillard.
Yeah, and that game put him into the 6 out of the play-in. The kid is our clutchest player that we have in the game. Doc?
So for me, it's Joel Embiid. 76ers have won 7 in a row. They're number 1 in the East now. It looks like they'll stay there, barring a collapse. Yeah. He has 4 straight double-doubles. 3 of those 4 games are 30 and 10 games. So, he's really coming back. And the 76ers, I think this is their year to make it out of the East if it's going to work with him and Simmons.
You got to be super scared of him. He's playing some Shaq-style basketball, and he can stretch it out a little bit. He's defending at an elite level. They are scary, scary, scary. And we all know he had potential, but I don't know what he did in the offseason with his conditioning. But he is here in the league. You got to be on watch with the 76ers. They are legit. We already mentioned go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say, I think earlier in the year, me and Kev and maybe some other people said, there was no path for the Sixers to get that 1 seed. And they really they proved us wrong, man. And they're doing all this with Ben Simmons giving us 70% of what he's capable of. He hasn't even had to take on any scoring load because Embiid has been so efficient. So I think the Phillies are just a really scary team.
Although
and
he did drop 42 on Gobert and was talking mad trash about it. That was pretty cool.
But that's my point. He can do that, and he's just choosing not to. He's choosing to give Embiid the offensive load. And I think it's it's going to be really interesting to see what happens this playoffs, number one. And number two, I think this team has proven that they should not be broken up. Like this is something you have to let grow and see what happens with it. So yeah.
Yeah, and we had mentioned Anthony Edwards and John Morant, who's been playing stellar recently, who had 37 and 10 in that win against in overtime against the T-Wolves. But I kind of got to go back a week. What Jason Tatum did with his 60 points on 20 of 37 shooting, 15 of 17 from the free throw line. He is bullying Bamas. He had 8 rebounds, 5 assists, no turnovers. At the end of the day, on an inhaler. And at the end of the day, yeah, the Celtics, their team is not playing great basketball, and they're outside of him and Jaylen Brown and Kemba every other game. They don't really have the strongest lineup, but he's just gotten better and better every single year. He's averaging 27, and he's making a case for all NBA. I just had to give – that's a franchise record for the most prestigious franchise, them and the Lakers, in NBA history. So my guy is Jason Tatum, and them Ball brothers is balling out too. So our newest segment of Trip Play is Who You Got. Today we take our picks for most improved player in fantasy this season. So, Kev, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat and just say Julius Randle for everything. I think on both ends. I mean, you were getting him in like after the 10th, 11th round. So that's I'm going to cheat and just say that if you have him on a roster, I think that you really competed well. He's triple-double machine this year. And then as a player, he's gotten so much better. And I love Randle, so I'm glad he's doing well.
Yeah, no, and specifically the threes, the percentage of threes, the assist uptick, and then an uptick in points and rebounds too. Tweeze, most improved fantasy guy.
Most improved fantasy guy, I would have to go with. I really like that Julius Randle play right there. But I would actually I like Christian Wood too. Christian Wood has been his stats have been amazing.
When he plays, the only down point on him is that durability thing, which is kind of like been up and down. And he's got a lot of like game to game, so that like it isn't penciled in whether he's going to play or not. That's a little frustrating as an owner, but I see a lot of the teams in the top 4 in the leagues that I've been playing in, that Christian Wood is definitely a rostered guy,
a high peak guy,
doubling up on all his statistics. Jeremy Grant is a similar guy. Who else haven't I got on? Brad, have you gone yet?
I haven't.
Okay, go ahead, Brad.
I was gonna pick Julius Randle, but I think as a backup, I might go with Domantas Sabonis. Man, he's gone from a double guy from last year to like a potential triple-double every night, and I don't think that's the kind of jump that's normal. I think he's shown that, number one, he's got the NBA blood in him, and number two, like he's in this evolved game. Like he's a big that can play, in the fourth quarter, late in the game. He can do everything really. So Domantas Sabonis he's my guy.
Yeah, his uptick in assists, much like Julius Randle, has been super impressive, and I understand that pick. But for me, this one's a clear-cut thing, and when I say the name, you're gonna be like, "Oh, man." It's the actual NBA MVP. It's Nikola Jokic. He is the number 1 fantasy player this year. He played every single game, which you can't say about any of these other guys that were just mentioned. His numbers last year were 19.9, 9.7, 7 assists, 1.2 steals, 53% from the floor, 81 from the free throw line, 31 from 3. That's great. That's wonderful. He had an uptick in all of those statistical categories. This year, he's averaging 26 points. That's a 6-point increase, 11 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 1.4 steals, 1.4 threes on 42% from 3, 57 from the floor, and 86 from the free throw line. He's our league MVP. He's our fantasy MVP. And he's the most improved player in the league. He's the most improved fantasy player in the league. Give him his flowers while he's here. Nikola Jokic. And shame on you, Nick Wright, for saying he is the worst MVP in 35 years. That's nonsense. Doc, you're on mute, but I know you got something to say.
Wait. Is this the segment where we slander Nick Wright? I'm all here for it.
He's terrible.
You can implement a nice statement because he deserves it after this slanderous comments on Nikola. Nah, we won't give him the time.
Nick Wright just like tries to overthink everything, and then when people tell him he's wrong, he just doesn't reply to them. You're spot on about Randall. Honorable mention to Colin Sexton. Julius Randle, career high in points, rebounds, assists. He's shooting more threes than ever and hitting a higher percentage. Free throws as well. He's shooting over 80% this year, and before that, his career high was 73%. So he seems to just be shooting the ball overall better this year. I think it's kind of interesting the kind of comparing to QB's accuracy. You think, oh, QBs can't improve accuracy, and you see Josh Allen improve. And Julius Randle, in I think his sixth year, his seventh year, is now a really good shooter.
I like that Colin Sexton pick you had, but I'm curious, this is a question to all of y'all. Would you guys give Julius Randle a max?
Yes.
So
yes, in the heliocentric era that we're entering, where you go through these, you pick your one player and you got to have them at these dynamic uses. Julius Randle has entered a different realm that allows him to be that guy. He can be a heliocentric source for your team. You can start.
I think you have to. If you're the Knicks and he's got you in the 4th seed, and you see that relationship with him and Tibbs and how he's been empowered and shooting over 40% from the 3-point line. The fact that his game has grown every single season shows how much hard work he puts in. Also, a side note on the max thing, he's not eligible for the Supermax even if he goes all NBA because he's been on 2 previous teams before. So you're not going to get hit the same cap number if you max him out, as opposed to guys like Jokic, Embiid, and Doncic who will be Supermax eligible.
Devin Booker's in the mix for New York.
He'd have to get all NBA, and at this point, me and Kev discussed it. He's a bubble all NBA guy, but it's looking like Chris Paul is gonna get that nod over him, unfortunately.
The one thing I wanted to add about Jokic before we got too far from that and his amazing season is that I think it's very impressive, and I talked about that his usage rate is still under 30. So he's going to have an amazing season. He's going to be one of the lowest usage rates since Kevin Garnett as MVP.
What does he play, like 32 minutes a game? He gets all this work in like
he can't. He's fucking dying out there. He's got a dad bod like me. Like he's got to limit his minutes. He plays like me at the pickup range in the game now. Like, all right, you guys got this one. I'm gonna play defense.
He does
on top of that, he just always makes the right play. Like he doesn't need to dominate the ball. To Tweeze's point, like he doesn't need to dominate the ball because he spots you open, he's gonna get it to you, and boom, go ahead, hit that 3. Go ahead, hit that post move. Like he's just an incredible player, man. And that allows you to fit more weapons around him. That's why Michael Porter is able to be there. That's what Jamal Murray is able to be there when he's healthy. Campazzo. You can put as many ball dominant weapons as you want around him because he doesn't need the ball. That's it.
If you take anything away from this pod, it's that Kevin has a dad bod.
Oh, I do. I do. I can't lose it.
Shoot, I think we all probably got like a little COVID 10 or 15, COVID 20. Who knows? But we are now ready for our question of the week, and I'm eager to hear your guys' responses here because it's super wide open. This is the biggest what if in basketball. Who would have had the greatest career bearing injuries, a situation that could have been different, a trade that possibly happened or didn't happen, an injury in a playoff format that changed the landscape of the entire NBA. We're gonna start with our guests. Tweeze.
All right. I guess it's funny you didn't really like go over this exact example, but what I would say is my biggest what if Chris Webber does the Blue Chips movie. All right, and if you're not familiar with the story or what goes on here, Shaquille, he spoke on it recently on his last interview, and Chris did too. But he did the movie Blue Chips back in the day. He goes to the set. They actually play basketball in the movie. And he experiences this experience with another player, and he's like, "Oh, who is this guy?" And it happens to be Penny Hardaway. He goes back to Orlando, and he tells him, "Look, if you guys don't draft this guy, I'm going to be looking to do something else with my contract at the end of the summer." And at first, they pick Chris Webber, and he starts trashing his apartment or wherever he's living and everything because he thinks they don't believe in him or whatever. And then he finds out they made the trade. Everything goes on, and we get that dynamic duo of Penny and Shaq. But with Chris's skill set, I can only imagine, because what I found out just recently is that he had the opportunity to do the movie. And not just do the movie in place of maybe Shaq, no, but in place of Penny Hardaway, which means that there's a very, very, very high likelihood that Chris Webber would have been the one delivering the ball to Shaq in his sweet spots. And then Shaq goes back and it demands exactly what they had the opportunity to do. You keep Chris Webber. And then we see one of the most dynamic duos of big men in history, and it changes the landscape.
Yeah, that would have challenged a little David
That's
Robinson and Tim Duncan right there.
I like that.
And it's funny because Chris Webber was on All the Smoke podcast as well, and he was talking about kind of his background, and he was hanging out with Naughty by Nature during that time and producing beats. And it's so funny because as he was talking about it, I had no idea that he produced Blunt Ashes by Nas and Surviving the Times by Nas. Like Chris Webber is an eclectic human being, and although I can't really stand his broadcasting, he is a basketball gem. He belongs in the Hall of Fame, and it would have been wild to see that. But the penny and Shaq fit though, man. That was some beautiful basketball.
We love to see Penny and Shaq. Well, the whole landscape changes though if we get the big men early. I don't even know. I mean, it might even affect Steph.
All right, so Tweeze, you just inspired me. I'm gonna go next. I'm changing my what if. What if is if Gilbert Arenas never brought those guns to the locker room.
I'm interested now.
He actually just told the story on Dan Le Batard's podcast and on his own podcast about how he basically changed his whole mentality once that happened, because the guy that brought those guns to the locker room was a guy that was, constantly pushing boundaries, constantly trying to make himself better, constantly trying to be an assassin. And once that happened, he had to change his whole mindset, because it didn't just become, the person he was affecting, if he's going to go to jail or not. He was on probation after that kind of thing. So it became bigger than basketball. It became, always worrying about what people are saying about you. It wasn't just, how you play the game. So it changed. Once that happened, he changed his whole outlook on life. He changed his whole personality in the game. And he was never really the same player because he didn't have that same Agent Zero mentality.
He wouldn't be doing what he's doing now, giving us this gold on podcasts without that experience too, Brad.
That's true. So that's probably my biggest what if, because I'm a huge Wizards fan, and he's probably the best player we've ever had. Well, I guess in recent memory, we've had some greats, but
you could double on the injury thing too. If he never goes down with that knee injury, we're looking at he was a top 10 player in our NBA. So
and it's a free contact injury too. It's not even like it's going to fall apart. It's a free contact injury. It's sad.
All right, so it's not triple play fantasy basketball without a double down on Wizards background information. Kev, let's get a perspective from the West Coast.
Yeah, I think that when I look at this, the biggest what if for me is if the Thunder doesn't trade Harden. That's always been my big one. If they would have kept Harden, Durant, and Westbrook there, how many championships would they have won? Because
get rid of Ibaka.
They chose Ibaka over Harden, and that's really what they did. And they gave him that money, and it's because they thought. I think, and this is why I think Presti deserves some shame a little bit, because he didn't realize the format of what basketball was going to. Guards, spread it out, space it out, and shoot. And then he never did a really good job of putting shooters around those guys either. So,
is that the worst trade in NBA history, Kev?
Well, now you should. I mean,
it's in the conversation.
It's a conversation because of what they could have been, right? I mean, I don't think they realized what Harden did. Could you imagine Harden playing point guard and Westbrook playing off ball, which probably
Ron Butler for Kwame Brown is pretty bad.
The Clippers traded away their draft pick that became Kyrie for Baron Davis.
Three future MVPs on that OKC roster, and they went to the finals as babies, not knowing the game.
In fairness, I would have done that too. Like looking back at the time, because the thinking at the time was like, there's only one ball. We can't have these three great scorers on one team. So I don't really blame Presti for that.
Harden was also sixth man at the time and was just coming off an awful NBA Finals.
But to Kevin's point, though, it's about him not being able to see the future.
Right.
That's the game is one thing. We don't need Serge.
Doc, he was terrible in that finals. They doubled him every time he got the ball, and he couldn't figure that out. But he was the reason why they beat the San Antonio Spurs. He dominated fourth quarters. He played Manu, but he leveled up in that series. And so he did collapse in the finals. but he's also the reason why they got to the finals, because that San Antonio Spurs team was, I mean, obviously prolific for 15 seasons, 20 seasons. And they were damn good that year. That was an upset victory. But yeah, that's a really good one. It's a good head scratcher. I guess I'll go up next. Shout out my brother. We've argued this before, and he brought this to me. My pick is Grant Hill. In college, he went to 3 NCAA finals. He won 2 of them. For the Pistons, he was Rookie of the Year. He averaged 20, 10, and 7. He finished 3rd in the MVP voting that rookie season behind Jordan and Malone. He improved those numbers for 5 straight years. He was an All-Star 6 of his first 7 years. But he rushed back from that ankle injury after signing with Orlando, and he only played 47 games in 4 seasons, which it makes you think like maybe this was the biggest comp to Michael Jordan and Kobe, the next coming, and he could have been the next face of the NBA. His IQ was exceptional. His crossover explosion, with his size, it was second to none. He was 6'8", 225. He was LeBron before LeBron in a way, because he could run up and down the floor and get his teammates involved, and also defend at a very, very elite level. He would come back and be the best defensive player for the Suns, even albeit with no legs, just smarts. For 3 of 5 years in the playoffs, he was defending Kobe Bryant to the age of 37. He played 40 till he was 40 with no legs. He's all class, all determination, great local vocal leader. He would lead by example. He could have been in a top 10, top 20 all-time range with no injuries. And so it is a big shame that not only Grant Hill got hurt, Kobe didn't really have his number one nemesis playing. And thinking of that, I also got to think about Len Bias, because I think Len Bias was going to give Michael Jordan the biggest comp on the next level, and the fact that he was going to go to a storied franchise in the Celtics, and he died that draft night. You watch those old highlight tapes. Lenny Bias was coming. You saw it in the heads-up battles between North Carolina and Maryland back in the day. So I think 1, Grant Hill, but 2, Lenny Bias, and maybe Kobe Bryant, maybe Michael Jordan didn't find their ultimate nemesis head-to-head because of 2 different situations. But those are my biggest what-ifs, especially being a Maryland fan my entire life. I've always heard all these stories. I've done my own investigations, and it's a shame that we didn't see Len Bias, who made one little mistake that he wasn't able to play out his career.
Yeah,
all right,
I mean,
and Doc.
For me, I didn't think about this initially, but I think Derrick Rose, with that horrible injury he had against the 76ers.
Youngest MVP. Yep.
Yeah, youngest MVP. That's probably one of the only times we've seen an 8 beat a 1. The only other time I can think of is the Warriors beating the Mavs. But you talk about that might have changed, LeBron's career, because the Heat, the Big 3, obvious best team in the East, but a healthy Bulls with D. Rose, Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, Joakim Noah, Luol Deng. I mean, we see Tom Thibodeau is a great coach now with the Knicks. That could have been a good rivalry for, the early part of the 2010 decade. And it's just kind of a what if now.
I remember LeBron was considering going to Chicago during that first free agency.
Melo thought about going there instead of re-signing with the Knicks.
Yep.
Kobe wanted to go there too. And nobody actually went except for D Wade when he was 35. But there was another 8 seed that beat a 1. I remember Denver Nuggets led by Mutombo beat Seattle. But yeah, it rarely happens. And then to Derrick Rose, yeah, he was the youngest MVP, but he came in with Steph, and Steph was not even mentioned as a comp to him. It was like Derrick Rose was 10 times better than Stephen Curry, and it is a shame that we didn't see him with all that explosiveness. Yeah, we've seen him get better and better with these injuries. So could you imagine him actually being full strength and still getting better?
We still see like some vintage D Rose in him, but
he's so clutch now. I love his clutch play. That's one reason why the Knicks, who were losing a lot of close games at the beginning of the season, are now winning all of them.
No closers.
I was gonna say, I don't even think it's a glimpses type thing. Like, he's he's just accepted a role of like coming off the bench, so he plays that role because he's a good teammate. But I think if he went to one of these like scrub teams, like Orlando or Houston, and he was told to go be the man, I think he could go give us, not the same athleticism that he did when he was in Chicago, but he could give us the same numbers. Like he's a much better player now than he was.
He said to himself.
He can hit the three.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could do this next week. What if we talk about CP maybe getting traded to the Lakers? There's just so many what ifs. If Kendrick Perkins doesn't get hurt in Game 5, if Draymond Green doesn't spaz out and LeBron pulls the Joker card with getting him teched out, will they win that series against the team that won more games than anyone else? There's so many avenues that you can have. But I thought today's pod was amazing. I love the energy. I love the banter going back and forth. And Tweeze, thanks for coming on with us. Glad we can get you away from the studio for a second. No but where can we find you? You got any plugs? And what are you doing?
All right, two things. One, before I gotta say this to Doc before we get out of here, man. You made a great point about not winning, about the 7th seed being too low to win, right? But I just want to make sure that we remember that the lowest seed to ever win was the Houston Rockets, and it was after
6th seed, right?
6th, and they had just lost. They had just won the championship, a lot like the Lakers did recently, and it was very similar. A lot of injuries down the stretch, but they were able to pull it together, figure it out, make that run. So
they won that championship.
Hey man, if this is what's helping you get through this early part of May, then okay.
You sound like me as a Wizards fan, man.
They beat Knicks in Game 7, correct?
Yeah, they beat the Knicks and yeah.
All right, so what you got some plugs? I know you got the Sports Freaks.
Okay, the Sports Freak podcast. We haven't I honestly haven't shot in a while. When the co-host has moved back to California, and we allowed that to limit us. I'm a very honest person. We just did that, but we'll get back to that soon. But you can find me on Instagram at Tweeze. I think I'm not really familiar how this works. Is my name visible right now?
Yeah, it's up there. TWEEZAY.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. Like I said, I do management consulting for artists and production. And we've got a team over there at MetroKnowMeMusic. Go ahead and check us out there too at MetroKnowMeMusic.
Hey, tell us about why you played hooky on us last time. What happened?
Nah, this is where we cut it off. We don't air out dirty laundry.
I was trying to give him a plug on that NBA young boy. That was a huge get. Try to get him on with us. We'd love to tap into some music.
If he could just hopefully he can stay out of trouble, and then he can be a little bit more available.